to the white person, say it's always a conspiracy. And I'm not saying that we're not to acknowledge the wrongs that we've suffered as a people in the past, but you can't measure your success in life using somebody else's yardstick. You can't measure your success in life using somebody else's yardstick. And if you spending time being mad at some people or some places or some things, you need to go somewhere. Maybe you can take Highway 55 down here to Hennepin, turn right, go up there by that school, sign up in the admissions office for a class on architecture, and then what I want you to do is learn how to build a bridge and get over it. That's all. Learn how to build a bridge and get over it, flat out. Next slide. It says, a nation without a past is a lost nation, and a people without a past is a people without a soul. Come on now, come on. A nation without a past is a lost nation, and a people without a past is a lost soul. How important is your past to you? How important is it for you to know the legacy of your forefathers? How many of you know the history of your grandmother's lineage? How many of you know that? How many of you know the history of your great-grandmother's lineage? How many of you know the history of your great-great-grandmother's lineage? See how thin that is? We're but 2 generations deep of history in here. Now, the generation that's coming up before us, if we're not able to grasp a hold of that history, where are we going to be? We're going to be like the days of Judges, where it says that there was a generation that grew up and knew not the God of their fathers. Yes. And every man did right within his own heart. Yeah. So we have to make it relevant. So now we have to say, if I want to do the soul work, I got to come in and help you to understand your identity, your self-worth, your purpose, your value. You have to be able to understand and appreciate that. And so what you got to come to understand is this, is that the diameter of your knowledge is the circumference of your activity. Yes. Raskai's using in the song, the diameter of your knowledge is the circumference of your activity. What does that mean? I will know what you know based upon what you do. Yes. If all you do is slam dominoes every day and play spades and all that, and I know you a dominologist, you a spadeologist, and someday you're hoping that you can go to Vegas and win the domino tournament, but I'm here to tell you, newsflash, there is no domino tournament in Vegas, so right now you're just practicing and wasting your time. The diameter of your knowledge is the circumference of your activity. As you broaden your horizon of knowledge, you begin to experience new activities outside of just being somewhere in the club, somewhere in a dysfunctional relationship, somewhere in church lying and conniving and manipulating and cheating, somewhere gossiping at a nightclub or a bar, somewhere being mad and bitter about the person who just wronged you yesterday. You have to begin to broaden your knowledge. All right. And I know I'm talking to some of the older folk, but the young folk, I want you to hear this, because I don't want you to get 30, 35, and 40 and be as bitter as some of the older folk. Because the diameter of their knowledge has been the circumference of their activity, and that's why they, you know. And not to say that all of them are, because we have it here in Zion, and we have a blessing. We have rich history here. Y'all have been blessed and privileged to see almost 3 generations present in this church. No, I'm sorry, not almost 3 generations present in his church. Emeritus' children, and his children, and then Pastor Brian's children, and then Pastor Brian's children's children. We already in the 4th generation. Them herons ain't nothing nice. But we see how Emeritus had just invested in the life of Pastor Brian. He took the diameter of his knowledge and said, now, son, I'm going to give this to you as an activity. So now you get to start where I finish. You get to start where I finish. You don't have to start from a blank page and try to build your way up because nobody never told you. Here it is, Pastor Emeritus is sitting there saying, I know from whence I came, son. And because I know from whence I came, I'm giving you direction to go where I can't go. So I know it's Black History Month. That was just a preamble. That's all it is. Black History Month. So we're going to talk about Africa. Africa, the lineage of all mankind. Yes. I don't care who you are or what you know. That's the motherland. Amen. That's the cradle of civilization. Yeah. You can be mad if you want to, but that ain't gonna change the truth. That's the cradle of all civilization. And it wasn't just people of color, there were people of all hues.
That's right.
From the cradle of civilization. And I was sitting back and I was thinking about Africa. You know what's amazing about Africa is that so many people right now are arguing about, is Africa the original name of the continent? This is the biggest argument. Not that HIV has plagued it, not that apartheid has been abolished, but they still have separatism going on there in South Africa. Not that we have this chronic disease of hunger and starvation that's permeating throughout the central region of Africa. None of that is of any consequence to people. It's about what was the original name? And there's so many different theories out there of what the original name of Africa is, that when it came down to a research says this, is that there was no one name for the entire continent. Because it was so large. Even the Egyptians, when they were in their imperialistic reign, hadn't explored all of the depths and the vastness of Africa at the time. So no one somebody were able to capitalize on it. They said it was an evolution of a Greek word that came from a Latin. There was so much. Do some history and look at it. But what I want to talk about with Africa is this. Africa has all of the gold. All the world's gold. That's right. Now we can go back and do some history. One of the first strongest empires in Africa was the Empire of Kush. Right. Not that stuff that Lil Wayne smoked. Kush. Come on. See, I gotta make it plain because the young folks think, man, I'm telling you, it was in Africa they was blowing. I said, every time we come up to pastor afterwards, say, hey, the preacher was talking about it. No, y'all, it ain't going down like that. Gold. A rich, strong, and abundance of the resource of gold in what they call the Gold Coast, the western region of Africa. And as Africa began to evolve, then the next empire that came up was the Ghanaian Empire, which was the people of Ghana. And they have these rich, just amazing gold mines that they had. And they were providing, they had a trade that was going on that was just so amazing that it caused the Portuguese to come in and to migrate and invade, to come in to do business with the Africans. Said, hey, you guys got this valuable commodity here, and it's around here like sand in the streets. We want to come and get some of this. And they said, well, come on, let's figure out how we can do business. And the Africans weren't willing to let the Portuguese people capitalize on the natural resource that they had. So some situations happened. There was a little bit of trouble. The next valuable resource that Africa has is diamonds. The diamond mines in Africa are unlike no other. Unlike no other. You can't talk about bling without talking about Africa. Come on. The first people to ever stunt and shine was Africans. Before the jewels of the British monarch ever were in the Tower of London, it was here. When you talk about, you go and study the jewels of the British monarch and see the 2,000 carat diamond that they broke down and they put in the crown and the staff that the queen carries and all of that came from. All right. And then this is what it's all about today. That all of the beef is about. It's about oil. Africa has oil refineries out of this world. But this is what I don't understand. How does Africa have all the gold, all the diamonds, all the oil, and still it's considered a third world country? Yeah. Still considered a third world country. How is it that you have all the gold, all the diamonds, all the oil, and you're a third world country? Or what they call politically correct, a developing country. How is it that this beautiful continent called Africa has this abundance of a natural resource. So what happened was, after the Ghanaian Empire had came up and began to be in trade, buying and trading with the Portuguese on the gold, and the slave trade began, and then you had the Mali Empire, and then you had the Songhai Empire, which got us into almost into maybe the late 13th century, early 14th century. Well, around the early 1500s, Africans had first migrated to the Americas. Where? Who knows? Mexico. Mexico. South America. If you go and you look at the history of Mexico and a lot of the Aztec history and all that, you'll see a lot of statues that resemble African features in their faces. You'll see a statue to a polytheistic African god that they worshiped when they first came over. And then the Mexicans started doing some business with the colonies of America as they began to get established. And then they started the slave trade and migrated them there to the areas in Texas and Louisiana. They had this kind of a Spanish conquest that was going on. So what was interesting about it was that the Africans came, and then we know that they didn't have a history. We know that the language has been dissipated. But where did all this come from? How did it all begin? When they came in to do business with them, they said, we want the gold. And we'll take the gold, as say hypothetically speaking, $50 an oil. And Africa was becoming an industrialized country. They were moving away from riding camels and the natural beasts to now having, the combustion engine that came to place, and cars and things like that. And they wanted to be cutting edge. And so they knew if they didn't start doing business with these natural resources, that they would be behind in civilization. So the Europeans that came in and figured out how to refine the oil and have all of the uses for the oil. And so they came in and said, now $50 a barrel, hypothetically, is what we'll pay you for this oil. So Africans said, okay, cool. So then the whites came in, they processed the gold, they processed the diamonds, they processed the oil, and then the Africans now needed the oil to drive their cars. And so now they had just got $50. This isn't a hard number, it's just a hypothetical number. They had just got $50 for a barrel. And the whites came back and said, well, this is what we'll do, because we had to manufacture it and process it. We'll sell it to you for $75 a barrel. Hypothetically speaking, this is a number. Now they knew that this was a number that they wouldn't be able to afford. And so they said, well, we'll give the 50 back that you just gave us, and now what we'll do is work as an indentured servant for the other 25. Now the indentured servant and the slaves of Africa weren't as malicious as the Arabian slave trade, weren't as malicious as the European slave trade, weren't as malicious as the slaves that reached the shores of America. There were rules and regulations. A slave had to be set free after 7 years. A slave was seen as a member of the family back then. A slave wasn't to be beaten and mistreated and all of these things. All of that didn't happen until they got deported out of their native land. So now here, they sold their natural resources because they didn't know the value of it. Think about that next time. And when you have a value system, it says a value system is the accepted mode of conduct and the set of norms, goals, and values binding any social group that serves as a frame of reference for the individual in reaching decisions and achieving life. It says, I highlighted the word accepted because when we look at our value system today as a people, what are the things that we've accepted? What are the social tolerances that we've built up? To where now we've just bent all the way over here to be able to accommodate the minority who have said, now I want to bend the societal values within the culture of African people. And so now this has become an accepted thing. Gangbanging is accepted in the community. Crack cocaine is accepted in the community. Pimping is accepted in the community. And it's not that we're sitting back saying, everybody say, yeah, bring more dope, bring more dope. But the idea that we tolerated it in the beginning, now it's here. Now it's become a norm. So it's nothing for a person to come in and say that they're strung out on drugs. We've accepted that as a part of our value system. And now we're trying to recoup and regroup to say, how can we get these people back to from whence we came? How can we get our young folk back from seeing the generation that went before them strung out on drugs? Or how can we get our young folk back from seeing gangbanging come in and seem like this is the thing to do, when the true essence of who we are tribal and communal people, that we were meant for round table discussions and to gather around the fire to to discuss the vicissitudes of life here in this country.
Come on now.
How do we get it back? How do we get it back? Well, they developed a distorted value system because of what they see. That's right. It's not do what I say, do what you see.
Come on.
And what I